Okay, so this, just to repeat, this is a Dhamma talk that Ajahn Sona gave in 2007 at a retreat. And it's just wonderful instructions on how to approach a retreat and on the conditions that are needed before we can really settle our mind. And this is third in the series, so you have to go back to the summary of weekly talks for the last 2 Fridays to get the first 2 talks.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa buddham dhammam sangham namassami. So we're moving into the point of the retreat, and may have noticed a little calming down, serenity, maybe losing track of time, forgetting what day it is. Those are all good signs. But I always know what day it is, that's a bad sign. There's no reality to the days. We're spinning 1,000 miles an hour, roaring around in space at 100,000 miles an hour, in the middle of infinity. So the idea of days, or what day it is, or what day of a year, all just convention. Sometimes people have a special feeling about Mondays or Sundays, etc. As if there was actually a day called Sunday. No day called Sunday. But every day is a possibility. And yesterday I talked a little bit about sila, and I'd just like to talk a little more about that. But of course, the very critical point. It sounds easy, the precepts, etc. And that's the way naively people often think of it that way, but of course it's deeper than that. It's about attitude. I talked also about how if we can straighten our virtue, then peace should be available, should naturally come to us. And this, I didn't talk about the time frame for this straightening of virtue. It's not a matter of time. They talk about purifying your virtue, and how long does that take? Is that do you have to behave yourself for a year before you deserve samadhi, or 10 years, or how long is the sentence? Well, there's no sentence to it, of course. It's about getting out of prison, not being in prison. The precepts, the behavior of sila is about freedom. It is the freeing nature. It is not about restrictions. It's about freedom. So feeling free, having let go of the coarser energies that cause the transgression of the boundaries. Either it's how do you violate the precepts? By greed, by hatred, and by delusions. That's how you violate the precepts. How do you stay within the bounds of the precepts? By non-greed, non-hate, non-delusion. But non-greed, non-hate, non-delusion sounds pretty good, actually. It's put in the negative form, just the absence of. That's the reason why the Buddha talks that way, non-greed, is that there's a variety of positive absence of greed type states. We wouldn't want to just restrict it to one. So there's many very beautiful mental states. The word beautiful comes up quite a bit in the Dhamma. The Dhamma itself is beautiful. Kalyana, beautiful. One who has Dhamma qualities is beautiful. Mental states which participate in non-greed, non-hatred, non-hatred. So there's a number of non-greedy mental states. Generosity, of course, being one that comes to mind. Loving kindness is not greedy. Compassion is not greedy. Enjoying the happiness of others is not greedy. Equanimity is not greedy. All kinds of positive states are not greedy. So non-greed, non-hatred. There could be many, many states. In fact, Buddhism is very articulate on this matter and analyzes the possibilities of consciousness. It may not have occurred to you that there is a certain finite number of possible states of consciousness. But we recognize some of this language. For instance, most of us have these categories. Now, people are at various levels of skills in identifying their own moods and emotions. So it's very, famously, a person who's very angry may not know it, may not be able to identify their own emotions. And that's interesting. Others are sensitive to know what it feels like and what its name is. And that's the beginning of things. If you don't know what your conscious state is, and what's its name, and whether it leads to happiness or unhappiness, is quite a state to be in. Profound ignorance about the most critical and important parts of one's life. A person may have information about other things in life. There's a lot of people in prisons doing big time. They have quite a bit of knowledge about various worldly knowledge. And maybe quite adept at certain things, playing basketball or cracking staves or things like that. And in fact, they may even have, sort of what the world admires as worldly skills, but often they don't have this primary insight to their own. What is going on in my head? What am I experiencing here? Is this anger? Is this egotism? Is this, etc.? So we have to know this. We have to become more and more sensitive to and aware of names, understanding how they rise, how they're sustained, how they pass away. So sila, going back to this sila, is this contributing understanding to how negative mental states pass away and how positive mental states arise. So that's what the nature of virtue is. Virtue is a very beautiful word. It's not just behave yourself or don't rock the boat or conform or anything like that, because we get all kinds of naive misunderstandings about it. And no wonder, usually it's taught in morality and so forth, very taught in very poor ways, how many skills have you been taught or etc. that the teachers make it a drudgery or a thing that you must learn, a dreadful kind of thing, because that's what life is about. You've got to learn these skills to fit in and make a living, etc. Horrible kind of. And then you find out maybe after a while that actually these things are quite pleasant, quite beautiful, quite interesting. And it didn't have to be so badly presented. This is the same with virtue. Usually badly presented, sort of a heavy, threatening kind of quality to the whole thing. And just basically damper on everybody's fun, etc. So we have to throw away all of any of those kind of things and use words like beautiful. We're aspiring to the beautiful, to freedom, to beautiful. So often morality or rules or precepts don't have those connotations, but we have to reframe them so that that's where it leads. Again, how long does it take to establish this? What if you've been living unskillfully, transgressing all kinds of boundaries for 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, 30 years? How long does it take to undo that and then have a chance at samadhi? Doesn't take any time at all. The moment the mind is what we call the sila, is purified, the click into this virtuous attitude, then the mind is prepared to experience right away, almost immediately, a resultant mental state. So don't think that it takes a lot of time or that you have to follow the precepts for 3 years before you will be a good meditator, before you have the basis for being a good meditator or something like that. It's not about time. It's just a shift in attitude, a kind of a click, a getting it. So reflect on that. You may have a feeling that you're not deserving of samadhi, a peace, of ease, that you're not deserving of that. But if you get it, you deserve it. You don't have to ask whether you deserve it or not. If you can get it, you deserve it. That's all you need to know. And there's nobody's keeping points or anything like that. All you gotta do is get it. So arrange that configuration. What is that configuration? The roots of that configuration. That mental configuration, consciousness, which leads to beautiful resultant consciousness that leads to that sense of ease, lightness, peace, joy. What is that configuration? It's you gotta examine, sweep through your body, look at your body, not for sensations, but for attitudes. Our fundamental operating system is, as I say, people are not aware of it. You can see it in others, can't you? You can see their defensiveness, that they're in a hostile attitude, and there's really no need for that. It depends on how you're raised and all this kind of stuff. You pick up these things. If you're raised in a kind of a generous, easygoing family and all this kind of stuff, and you encounter somebody who's in this family has been terribly strict and over serious and no sense of where the line is and etc. The person may have picked up all of these attitudes. You can see it a mile away. It's simple. Your advice to them is, well, just relax, will you? No, there's nobody. You've got a vision of the world where it's just absorbed, and you're in a continuous state of battle or on high alert or something like that. So anyway, it's not so important about others, but what about ourselves? What have we taken for granted? What kind of assumed attitudes do we have? What is entirely unnecessary that we are thinking we have to do? It's a form of, this is the bad habit, unquestioned. That's what we have to do, is carefully with mindfulness, in a relaxed, especially in an environment like this, very unthreatening environment, to just look at our mental state and ask yourself, what is it I'm anticipating? What is it that I feel I need to represent? Something like that. Where do I feel tension? What would I like to let go of? Am I expecting something bad to happen to me? You have to look quite closely. Do I expect there to be a problem in an hour or two? You know? Do I carry that through the day? Tomorrow? What about tomorrow? Am I nervous about tomorrow? Is there some sort of anticipation of some sort of conflict or problem coming up, etc.? On and on. We have to look at our basic operating system. What are we doing? Where are we leading? How are we? What's our posture? There are inner postures. I read about this. I've seen a few photos and heard about this as well. It's a little design by the Tibetan teacher Chogyam Trungpa. He had kind of, I guess from the Tibetan tradition, they have something like this, a kind of psychology of types of people and kind of fundamental attitudes. And he designed this little a house, and each room in the house had a kind of a special color and a shape of a window. The room had a certain physical shape and color. And according to your inner stance, now this does go back to Buddhist psychology. There's three fundamental negative things: greed, hatred, delusion. Three positive ones: non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. We do that. We describe it in English all the time. Tight-fisted. Tight-fisted. This person being ungenerous. A form of greed or something like that. Or open-handed. You can see these fundamental postures, the psychology of that. So anyway, he would have a person who maybe would tight-fisted would have them come into this room, and he would have them stand there and hold that posture, maybe of tight-fistedness, for 45 minutes. Just hold that posture until you become aware of that you are walking around in that posture all the time. And then he would have them after. Now he wouldn't just ask them to open their hands, but he'd have them hold the posture which they are holding, in an inner posture, but act it out fully in the physical posture. And he had them standing, beside a window, but not looking out, but standing there, not looking around the corner. Or others who are always outward, looking at somebody else, stand and hang their head out the window for 45 minutes. But feel until this final absurdity of this posture hits you. That what is it I am doing? Why am I standing there looking, staring at others all the time? Why is my attention always up there? What is the tension of this? Or a defensive posture where one is to stand there holding one's hands up like this for 45 minutes. You see how useless, this thing. I said, you let it go. So before we have to recognize this is so close to us. It's so close to us, it's the second skin. We fail to realize what it is. It's just the assumed operating system. Until we kind of, well, you come to a 10-day retreat, you start to feel it. You start to feel, well, I'm supposed to be sitting here peacefully or walking peacefully. It's a very pleasant environment, birds, flowers, blue skies. I'm not, at ease. Well, when am I going to be at ease? Nobody's threatening me. There's no harassment. There's no pressure. There's nothing. What is it that's, keeping me from letting go? This is, of course, what, just putting you in a situation like this, the mind starts to realize this. It is creating a kind of a drama, melodrama, quite independent of a circumstance, because you're in this kind of nice white and black room, just very empty. And still the mind is churning, manufacturing. So it's not the world after all. It's not what's going on out there. There's nothing going on out here. It's in here. Creating, proliferating, manufacturing, movies, novels, drama, problems. Awareness of this. So, of course, the letting go of this is with it's a letting go of the breath. The breaths can be whole. That's a letting go of this kind of habitual attitudes. And you do need space like this, 10 days, couple of weeks, a month or so. Who gets this opportunity? You're very fortunate to have this opportunity, and I congratulate you for actually finding your way to a place like this. Many people in their whole lives will not even have an hour of kind of uninterrupted silence and stillness, where they're awake. When they're asleep, yes, but when they're awake, they will avoid that. So it is the workshop for this opportunity to discover the layers of attitudes and so forth. This is what is meant by sila. Coming to this attitude of non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. And if you get that, you will not be inclined to kill other beings or yourself. Neither. You will not be inclined to deprive beings of their beloved possessions. Etc. You will not be inclined to confuse others by misrepresenting reality, by lying to them, etc. Or lying to oneself. Because when you unburden yourself from the subtle attitudes and structures, you feel peaceful and at ease, and those kind of actions that have these motives cannot occur. But it's really the inner experience that we want. We don't want simple restrained behavior. That certainly it would contribute to world peace. Everybody agreed not. It was the most radical social revolution. If everybody just agreed, okay, no, we just won't kill each other, or we won't steal from each other, We won't transgress each other's relationships. We won't lie to each other, and we won't get blind drunk anymore. And so suddenly, most of the social problems have been cleared. So radical social revolution. All of the primary structural things have been fixed. But if it was just a matter of, I mean, that would be great. But if it was just a matter of trying to walk around with clenched teeth, just trying to keep from killing somebody, it would be good, but I prefer that to letting it out, not suppressing it. I want you to suppress it. I want you to suppress your murderous impulse, even though it's unhealthy. But of course, we want to go beyond that. We want to, the person who doesn't do these things, who cannot even think of doing these things, is not following rules in any way. Right? They're not following rules. These type of impulses just can't arise. They don't arise from and that is where the Buddha is pointing. That's where he often says, people praise the Buddha and his disciples for various things. They praise them for their restrained behavior. Says, this is a small thing. This is not the major thing. Praise them for composure or restraint or mindfulness or even concentration, etc. But these are not the ultimate thing. This is not the high teaching. It's not very. These are the world praises these things, but this is not ultimately where it's going. These are all means to an end, this higher end of deep understanding the nature of peace, unwinding, letting go until this final, ultimate sort of quality of peace called fun. But keep it in this context, whenever the precepts are enough, undo old ideas about virtue or precepts. And I start to see it in a wholly different way as the door is wide open, the meadow awaits, leaving the prison of constricted mental states. The narrow and deprived state of greed. One is it's self-inflicted, isn't it? That when you want something, you lack something. The more you want, the more you lack. To daydream about winning the lottery is to lack, is to produce lack, to make the quality of deprivation. You're daydreaming in the opposite direction. No need to win the lottery. I have plenty right now. I think you have plenty. I feel at ease. I like nothing. Then you like nothing. Letting go of irritability and aversion, complaints, anger at the world, at yourself, all these things. One is to let go of. The world is suddenly devoid of irritating people, including your irritating alter ego. You're suddenly in a world where nobody bothers you, including yourself. And so stepping out of these kind of traps, these are self-imprisonments, self-traps. unexamined assumptions. And so it is towards that Sila leads. So you can reflect carefully about this. This is where Sila, this reflection on Sila is these subtly held attitudes, which are liberating. You do have time, sort of settle down, soften up, and now you have time to look more subtly into yourself. What is it I need to let go of? Is my Sila, that is the heart for Sila, the good heart, has it arisen yet? The good heartedness, has it arisen? When it arises, it's like the early reddish hue in the sky signals the sun about to come up. That is the sun of clarity, of concentration, of peace. So we recited tonight the reflections, the 5 subjects for frequent recollection. And but there was a bit of backfilling to do. I really haven't finished with Sila from the previous one. So I will leave that talk on Sila so that you do have a chance to just reflect on that, catch those words. It's a very, very important to understand the causes for the writing of peace. And then perhaps tomorrow I will talk questions, the 5 subjects for frequent recollection. But tonight.
Okay. So that was a wonderful talk on self-reflection, becoming aware of our our habit energies that we're unaware of. So I open it now for discussion.
Fall on mindfulness. That's what he was talking about, that fall under 4 foundations of mindfulness of the mind, like watching your own mind. And he's talking about.
Yeah, I think it would be the 3rd category where it talks about the mind states. Yeah. Is the mind expansive? Is it contracted? The hindrances there, or the factors of awakening there? Yes. Yeah, and he was so right when he said, if you're just in everyday life, you can blame how you're feeling on the world around you. But then when you're in a silent retreat and there's nothing going on and it's just your brain, then you can't blame the world. Then you realize it's your own brain that's causing you suffering.
That was a hard day for me when I realized that. Yeah, that was an interesting day when I first realized. I'm like, oh, it's my mind. Crap.
Yeah, we can't do much about the rest of the world, but we can do a heck of a lot about ourselves. So we first of all have to accept, yeah, that's what needs changing.
I'm reading this book right now. I'm reading this book right now. One of my favorite authors, actually, new favorite authors, Tara Brach. And it's she has a Buddhist background, and the book is on self-compassion. And what she's talking about a lot recently reminds me of this sila, or she uses a word, she doesn't use she uses English words, but she calls it this trance state. So when we it's very similar, I would say, to habit energies, and that it's the habit patterns of the mind. So like when we're talking with someone and we're really not listening, we're really thinking about what we're going to how we're going to respond, and we're not really listening or seeing. And it's same thing with how we how we repeatedly think about ourselves or think about someone else, instead of, because everyone's always changing. And so when we meet somebody for maybe, it might be somebody we know that we see all the time, and we think, we know what they're thinking, we know what they're about. But in that moment that we're with them, they're actually different than they were the last moment we were with them. So that's, I think, really relates to those habit energies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can just put on that person there. Yeah, Tara Brach is quite a well-known lay Buddhist teacher. When I first knew about her, she was really doing a lot of work with substance abuse. Well, that was a long time ago, over 20 years ago. Yeah. So she's a very effective teacher. And listening is something, that's so important. And I remember that was just one of my first gifts that I fully received from my first weekend training in meditation. I was working as a psychiatrist, and we had, quite heavy caseloads. At the hospital, we'd have all these new patients admitted to us overnight, and we just had a lot to do, a lot of people to see and to sort out and to try and help. And so you tried to be as efficient as possible. And one of my sort of misguided ways of being efficient was when the person was giving me their history, I was sort of half listening to their history, and the other half of my brain was figuring out, okay, what's the diagnosis? What's the treatment plan? What are we going to do here? So, and thinking I was being efficient. And I remember I just sort of totally changed. I can't remember what it was I had learned in that first weekend meditation training, but I came back and I just 100% listened. And And then it was kind of magical. It felt magical to me because at the end of just 100% totally listening, which I think really means a ton to the person that you're working with or that you're just with, because they really feel heard, you know, when you're 100% there listening. It's just a really beautiful feeling of being held. And then what surprised me is, and probably shouldn't have been so surprising because I was well trained and experienced, is when they finished the story, then it would just pop into my mind what their diagnosis was and what their treatment plan was. So I didn't have to have been sort of doing that at the time that I was listening, because it would just sort of pop up fully formed at the end of that listening. Yeah, so really being present and listening is so powerful. You work in that field too, don't you, Rebecca? So you probably have experiences like that.
I just read that, you know, that little booklet you gave last week on compassion, little booklets.
Mhm.
That was exactly what that book said, is that compassion is just deep listening.
Mm.
So that was the main premise of the whole thing.
Mhm. Yeah, these were the 4 little booklets on the Brahma Viharas by Ajahn Amaro. Yeah. There's a few of them left and the free Dhamma books downstairs, I think. And if you miss out on the free copies, there's you can borrow it from the library. Yeah, go ahead.
I like that part where he talked about losing the concept of time and not knowing what day of the week it is, or how much time has passed, because I think that speaks to kind of flow state, which I think is when we often feel at our best.
Just have a baby, you won't remember anything.
Then you can be completely in the moment.
Yeah. I like the part because when he was saying, oh, how long have you been maybe like behaving with ill will or hatred or greed or delusion? 5 years, 10 years, 1 year. And how long is it going to take to unravel? And it's like, no, actually, I like the faith and the hope that it doesn't have to take that same amount of time. If you like, I deserve samadhi. I think that belief system is a good one to implement, feeling worthy of peace. Like if our subconscious doesn't believe that, then that's maybe a problem.
Yeah, and I think, and it's so true that there's causes and conditions, and we aren't we're not a hateful person, or we're not a loving person. We're a person where causes and conditions are such that at this moment we feel some hate, or causes and conditions are such that at this moment we feel love. And our meditation practice is, as he talked about today, is to become self-aware of that. And then we just change the causes and conditions. And then you can, just as quickly as you can have your button pushed and go from feeling peaceful to, having anger arise, you just as quickly you can push a different button and have love arise, or peace or samadhi, like stillness. For those of you who aren't familiar with the word samadhi, it's the peace and stillness and calmness that is the result of our meditation practice. But so even if you've been just walking around as a very angry person for the last 10 years, it doesn't take 10 years to, undo that. You can bring in the conditions to have that change. Probably going to be just momentary because you've got habit energy now that you've got to work on transforming. But you can get glimpses of it. So that was a very lovely part that he brought up. Okay, we're 5 minutes to the hour. Anything else before we move into our closing?
This is kind of not relevant, maybe if it's the right place, that's fine. I have some more question for Marilyn and then Ryan when he's back here, but if she could what that 1-year course was like a little bit and what it meant to you.
You pass the training course?
Yes.
Yeah, so do you want to speak in? So Catherine has asked, Ajahn Sona at Birkin is offering the Upasika training. Upasika means one who sits close by, and it's sort of, it's just a year-long training, and this one's going to be like totally canned, like all the teachings have been recorded, so it's not going to sort of be like a live teaching as it has been in past years. It's going to be a pre-recorded one, but it gives you the basis. Now, Ajahn Sona, his first teacher was from Sri Lanka, Bhante Gunaratana, but then he went to Thailand. So he really sort of, his monastery is sort of based on the Thai forest tradition. So you learn the chants and the customs associated with the Thai forest tradition. So that allows you to be comfortable. If you go into a Thai forest monastery, you'll feel comfortable because you'll know sort of what's expected and what the customs are, and be familiar with the chanting. So that's one part of the training. And then the other part is going through Bhikkhu Bodhi's book on the Noble Eightfold Path. So that's the path to the end of suffering, and just going over that in detail. So it's just a very comprehensive, lovely, groundwork for your meditation practice. And do you have anything you want to add? Do you want to just take the microphone there?
So part of it, I think I was very fortunate. I was feeling quite honored to have been chosen to be part of the program when I was the last group of, the third group of going to the monastery to participate in the program. So I think one thing for me, it cemented my commitment to the Theravada Buddhism path, and it focused on creating Kalyana Mitas, or close friends, spiritual friends, those that are like-thinking, like-minded. There was structure to it, but you also were at home following guided questions and groups. I guess I really do. I feel for me it was the added commitment to the path and to accepting Ajahn Sona as my teacher, and meeting people. I had this. I guess I do it all the time, but because I was there with 12 people, I assumed we were chosen to be there. We're all thinking alike, and we're on the same point in our practice. And of course, after you meet people in the first week, that myth is shattered. You realize that everyone's coming from everywhere, and probably none of you are at the same place in your practice. So there's a tremendous opportunity to grow when we have these opportunities and someone asks a question, you get an answer from someone else's question and you benefited from it. I think it's just, it's increased my focus tremendously, and sharing it with people. A lot of it was very private and self-focused. You know, you're not sitting around people talking about your practice, you're studying and growing in your own way. I don't know what else to say except for how clearly it focused me into the practice and strengthened my bonds with people in the practice, because even though I have this community, which I love dearly, it's here on Tuesday nights and I'm not out the rest of the week socializing or being present with other people that are here, although it was a very meaningful and deep experience for me to be in this practice and sharing it with everyone here. But it did remind me quite, and Ajahn Sona said this to me many times, you have to surround yourself with like-minded people. And I have deep friendships in this community, like 40 years, some people who have no interest in this part of my life, where this, what means is so meaningful to me. And Ajahn Sona said to me one time, you're gonna find, because how important it is to surround yourself with people, like-minded people, that some of these people are gonna fall away or slip away. And I said, I don't want that to happen. I mean, they're a big part of my life. But interestingly, even I have like got 3 godchildren in Canmore, and their mothers are all close friends. Those friendships have slipped away. Not that we don't still have a meaningful experience, but it's, I've wanted to share this part of my life so badly with people that mean a lot to me, because how much it means to me. And I'm not trying to convert anyone, but I'm learning that sometimes you just have to let that part go when you're with certain people, and how amazing it is when you are in other situations where you are connecting with someone, you have no idea that they have a similar background or path that they're walking on. And it seems like sometimes these people kind of you gravitate towards each other. It's just I don't know what you call it, but your auras are connecting without a mental connection. So yeah, so I you know what Simon, when you said you were following the Eightfold Path, that was sort of the focus of the the theoretical practice of the course, and it's hard. It's like you said, emotional. It's what you get inside and how you're feeling and how deep it feels. And I don't really know how to express what it meant to me or what it did to me. But I guess one thing is the focus. It really focuses more clearly on your commitment to what you want to do. And I think the sense of friendships that it tries to attract you to. Mm-hmm. So did that help?
Yeah, and Damika and Corey, you've been through the training. Do you want to share anything with Catherine about the training?
I think I would just say to maybe just get Catherine's email, and we could just have a discussion over email with regards to anyone that I just helping with your focus. I think I would have a hard time doing online myself at this point after being online so much. I think that would be probably my biggest struggle if I was doing it now, because like Leon said, you know, just being with people in area was hugely beneficial. So that would be my only comment.
Damika?
Yeah, my program was online as well. I think Corey did in person first and then online maybe, but mine like whole thing was online. Yeah, I did the program like 1 year, 2021. That's the program I did. Yeah, I find it a little bit difficult after that to keep in touch with everyone, and yeah, continue with it. But we have this Alberta group now. Like lately we were not meeting, but I find that very helpful when we do. Yeah, I really like the program. Even though I'm a like born Buddhist, I really, yeah, it was really helpful.
Yeah, and I host the Alberta Upasika group. So those who've been through the training, we meet once a month. We've been meeting on Zoom because we're all over Alberta. So that's been a Zoom meeting, but it's a way to sort of just get support for our practice. Yeah. Okay, thanks everybody for contributing there. So we'll just do our closing. So tonight, so for those of you who are new, we end with one of the Brahma Viharas. So each week of the month, we do a different Brahma Vihara. So those are the beautiful emotions that we're wanting to cultivate. Metta, which is the unconditional love or loving friendliness. Karuna, which is compassion. Mudita, which we're going to do tonight, which is the being happy for the happiness of others. And then Upekkha, equanimity, unflappable calm, regardless of what happens. So our practice for mudita is we just go around the Zoom and the live room, and those of you who wish, you just share a recent happiness or a recent good deed that you've done. And then the practice for everybody else is to feel happy for you. And, you know, when it's the middle of winter and somebody's been to Hawaii, so should the near enemy of envy arise, you do your best to transform it to happiness for the other person. So maybe we'll start in this, well, those of us on the Zoom screen here. So I just got back yesterday from Edmonton, where I went up for my mother-in-law's 99th birthday. So yeah, so I've known her for 54 years. So that was quite lovely. Yeah. Dhammika.
My daughter was here last weekend. Yeah, and we had a good time together. She'll be back on Monday, so I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, great. Rebecca.
I had a really lovely experience recently, weekend before last. My partner and I were celebrating our anniversary, so we went camping at Interlakes, and it was just really gorgeous by the lake there. And we went down to the lake shore at night and watched the moon pop up over the mountain, and it was just a really lovely experience.
Thank you.
I
also just meant actually do you want to use the yeah, so the people on Zoom can hear. Sure. Thank you.
I also made a trip up to Edmonton last week and over the weekend, and got to reconnect with some close friends. So that was nice.
I'm happy that I stayed quite calm and in more of a state of equanimity through some pretty tough stuff arising these past 2 days. So I'm really proud of myself for that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I just had a nice weekend enjoying the full weather and that, just doing some mountain biking and catching up with a friend, which I don't see too often. So yeah, very nice.
We had a great weekend on tour with the band. We had really happy people are starting to come back to shows. We had those 2 sold-out shows, Fort McLeod at the Empress Theater and the other one in Cremona. So yeah, it's just nice that people feel free enough to start coming back to this type of things now.
I just found out today that I have a young niece of 16, and she's been into, well, so she just got chosen to be Rapunzel in a musical in December, which she's thrilled about. And so I'm somehow I'm gonna get there, like this is my first time in 4 years, I'm gonna be out of Canmore. So I'm gonna make a really huge effort to share in her joy. It'll bring me a lot of joy to be with her as well.
You might have to walk up to the mic and put it on your chin. Yeah.
So my friends came over, like 4 friends from Toronto. So I was with them because over here I don't know anyone, and I was like alone over here. So they came over here and we just together for like 4 days. We went to Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver. I just showed them the place.
Oh, lovely.
Mine's more related to a good deed for a neighbor. So, and I'd love to do it as well. It was trimming some branches from 2 spruce trees in his yard to allow more light to come in and to just decrease the fire hazard and other safety issues. So he really loved it and we really loved it. So it was kind of mutual satisfaction.
Lovely.
So recently we have announced one festival coming up back in India, and we are going to celebrate here. And the day we have announced, it was a very cold response for a week from the community people. But as the day coming near and near, more people are joining and showing up for registering and all that. And especially I'm very excited about it because I celebrate this festival very crazily. A lot of costumes, and it's about folk and cultural dance and worship of goddesses. So it's called Navaratri, 9 consecutive nights, and people celebrate with music, dance, and celebration of folk dance. So something is happening here, and I'm very excited and happy about it.
Great.
I'll go to that.
Just a recent trip to the cusp, some mountain biking and yeah, just sitting and being in nature without any emails or texts or responsibilities. It was really awesome.
May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed. Lise, Blair, Kelly. May all beings be well and happy. Thank you, everyone. See you next week, and some of you will see on Sunday for the beginner's introduction, or sort of introduction to Buddhism.
Thank you.
Okay, good night.